Hey, 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 happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Tonight is Wednesday, January 26th, 2022. This is live stream 745. If this is your first time visiting, let me point out, super casual around here. Normally, what we would be doing is spending about the first half of the show talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I take a look at a tabletop game. If you have not caught any of the episodes this week, then you probably don't know that my laptop, I do all my work for the website, and of course, put together all the news and the images and that for the news portion of this show is out in Texas being repaired. At least that's what they say. I don't know. I don't have any updates since yesterday showing that it arrived. That's all I know. So there's no news going on right now on the dispatch, but we are taking looks at games. And tonight I am going to be taking a first look and paging through the Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome from Necrotic Gnome, available here in the U.S. through Exalted Funeral. So that's coming up in just a few moments. We're going to dive on in and have some fun with that. Also, should point out, if you like this video, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the dispatch streams live, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Dungeons & Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 2, Isle of Dread, from Goodman Games. This is on the horizon, so stay tuned. Stay tuned. And I like it. Just give you a little hint. I would have liked to have seen some other things going on with it. I will talk about that in the review, but I definitely think it is worth picking up, especially if you are into 5e and have any interest in running some of the really classic old school adventures. So stay tuned. Yeah, I would think Friday-ish is probably when I'm hoping to have it up. Gotta point out, it is super cold in the Chicago area. It is god-awful cold. And of course, I had to go get my booster for COVID and my flu shot today. And I had to be out. Well, it wasn't first thing this morning, but it was this morning when it was like -20 with wind. That was a blast. Oh, and I don't have any heat in my car. Yes. Love it. Loving it. Anyway, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for normally the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. I know with the laptop issue, not really doing news, but hey, I'm still doing videos at least. Flaming Heron's asking, -25 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Yes. Yes. In fact, I have to chuckle because my dad was talking to somebody over in, I think in London earlier today, and he was talking about minus 25 degrees, minus 30 degrees, and he didn't say Fahrenheit. So, of course, they're no doubt thinking, holy cow, are you kidding me? Minus 25 Celsius? Madman says you get a new perspective on cold when you have to go for a 100-yard swim in this weather for training. Yes. As you can see, I'm talking to people in chat. So that means since this is a live stream, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But I do pay my best to pay attention to chat. So if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, please chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight was the Motor City Madman himself. Yes, one of our chat moderators, the Madman, as well as Flaming Huron, who we haven't seen in a couple of nights. Battle Warpath is with us. Martin O'Brien is also with us in chat as well. Sarah D is hanging around. She says she's having one of those days too. Came home from the doctor and found water shooting out of the wall in the laundry room. Says new neighbors haven't fully moved in, so they turned off the heat in their apartment and the pipe burst. Oh, brother. You would think a complex would understand frozen pipes. I mean, I've lived in enough apartments in my life in areas that got cold. And when there was going to be a cold snap, they always had a notice on your door saying, better trickle that water. Better have that water trickle in a little bit so the pipes don't freeze. That sucks. I actually had, well, I shouldn't say me. It was my mom. When she was living in Arizona, she rented a house and had a garage, but she didn't really park in the garage. She used it for storage. And the washer and dryer were in there, and the hose split, it burst. And of course, all this water was spraying all over the place for hours because it happened in the middle of the night. And my mom had Elvis albums, and she had all these pictures that they used to have in theaters for different stars and things like that. You know, if you knew somebody, you could get them. They lobby cards is what I want to say they were called. All that stuff got ruined. Bunch of photographs of myself and my brother as kids gone. Sucks. Anyway, I do want to point out that if you want to take part in chat, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours. That's another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. I think I'm caught up with saying hello to everybody. And once again, sorry to hear that Sarah D had some water issues, especially in this weather. I mean, that's the worst. It is awful because I know Mr. Eddie T and Sarah D kind of live in my neck of the woods. So it's just as cold where they are as it is here. All right. Anyway. So if you caught my interview last night with Gavin Norman, we talked quite a bit about Old School Essentials in the Kickstarter that's coming on February 23rd, if I remember correctly, which, of course, by that time, I'll have my laptop back, so I'll be able to share some news about it. So Gavin mentioned some third-party adventures, and one of them he mentioned was Hideous Daylight, which is from Sword Lords Publishing. And Brad Kerr, the author, had commented about how he enjoyed the interview and thanks for the shout out. So I reached out on Twitter and said, hey, if you want to see any of your adventures reviewed, let me know. He's sending a couple. So I think we are going to get to take a peek at the Temple of 1,000 Swords and Hideous Daylight, which are print on demand from DriveThruRPG. So I thought, that's kind of cool. I'd like to be able to share some more coverage of some of the Old School Essentials adventures out there. I know we've got some reviews that are on the horizon as well. They would have been out this week, but once again, I'm not going to beat that dead horse or dead laptop. So you'll have to stay tuned for those. Andy Sykes has joined us in chat. Welcome aboard, Andy. Thanks for swinging on by once again. So before I jump into a look at Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome, a couple of things I wanted to mention. I swear, I don't know what it is about the interwebs, but people just can't admit that they're incorrect. Drives me nuts. Yeah, I've been getting comments lately on some different videos and that. And I talked about 2300 AD. Was it last week? I think it was last week. And I know that if I remember right, I think Kevin is doing a review of the new Mongoose edition of 2300 AD. And originally it was sold as Traveler 2300. And I've had these people arguing with me, oh, it's not Traveler. It's not Traveler. It was a big commotion. It was a big controversy all about it. And they just slapped Traveler on it. It wasn't Traveler. Yes, I get it. I understand this. It was not Mark Miller's Traveler. It was more Frank Chadwick. I think Frank Chadwick did the vast majority of the design work on that. And I'm certainly not knocking Frank Chadwick. I've met him a few times. He's very nice. He's actually a friend of mine on Facebook. But it was different. It was not the Traveler timeline. It was not Mark Miller's Traveler. I get it. I understand that. But do not argue with me that it was not Traveler because it was sold as Traveler 2300. That's how it was sold. That's what it was. Doesn't matter if you're like, well, but the whole background, there were different alien races and all the whole timeline's all different. Yes, I get it, but it was still sold as Traveler. It drives me nuts. I mean, there's like comments where it's like, I'm not going to argue this. I don't give a shit if you want to argue it or not. Facts are facts. It was sold as Traveler 2300. And yes, I understand that GDW took some, they took some hits because people bought it and were like, wait a second, this isn't Traveler? What? What's going on here? The mechanics were different. I don't remember a ton about it, but I did have it. Once again, we talk about this all the time. All the role-playing game stuff that a lot of us, many of us, had acquired over the years and never ran, never played. But, and once again, I wish I had all that stuff. So, yeah, so I get, it's like, I don't understand. Why do you want to sit there and argue when I understand the point you're trying to make, but the point is still, it was sold, the first edition was sold as Traveler 2300. Doesn't matter that they changed the name of it after the fact with the second printing and they made it 2300 AD and there wasn't Traveler on it. I understand that as well. It's almost like I've had people argue with me that Steve Jackson Games Car Wars, when it came out in a plastic clamshell box. And I'm like, no, it did not. It came out in a Ziploc bag, like many of the metagaming releases at that time that sold for what, like $2.95? Micro games. It was in a Ziploc bag because I bought it. I bought it when it first came out at a like game store that we used to go to called the Suzzler's Wagon. That was in Chicago. It was over on Central Avenue, over near Belmont. And I picked it up there, and I'll never forget. I picked it up, and it was brutally cold that day. It was like one of the coldest days in the history of Chicago. And I was out and about because on Sundays I'd go to this game store, and then I'd go to the science fiction bookstore that was right down the street. And it was like 70 below with wind. And I'm riding Chicago city buses, and I'm like the only one. Like, Bane122 says, shouldn't it be easy to just look up pics to see the names? Yeah. Yeah, you can take a look. You can see Traveler 2300. And that's why I keep saying that's what it was sold as. So, but once again, I get people who argue all the time. No, absolutely not. It was in a clamshell. It was in a plastic clamshell snapped together. No, that was way later. That was way later that Steve Jackson Games started putting stuff in little clamshell boxes. So did TSR. It was about the same time. TSR started putting things like, what is it? Attack on Pleasantville. I think that was one of them that they put in the little clamshell box. Yeah. So as Flaming Heron says, arguing for the sake of arguing. I know. I get it. If I'm wrong about something, I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm wrong. So it's like, it's not that big deal. I'm not like, oh, damn you all to hell. Can't believe I'm wrong. I'll never admit to it. Anyway, it's like a lot of people are commenting about the Dungeons and Dragons rules expansion gift set. And how come I didn't look through the other two books? And it's like the other two books have been out. I understand there have been some changes that have been made to those two books. But I guarantee if I had started looking at those two books, that I had people commenting, why are you wasting our time looking at these two books that have already been released? Yeah, we understand. There's errata. Yeah, so. All right. So Bane122 says, I don't get why someone would argue about it instead of just looking it up when the name doesn't match their memories. I know. I get it. And I swear, I guarantee I'm wrong about stuff when I remember things. But it's not a hill I'm going to die on. But I do guarantee you I am correct on Car Wars because I bought it and we started playing it a few days later. I'll never forget. My dad was staying at my grandparents because of the weather. And my grandparents, his parents, they lived near where I was at the science fiction bookstore and the game store. And I was like, oh, man, it's cold out here. I think I'm going to swing by there. See, my dad's like, what are you, out of your mind? Are you insane? It's the kind of kid I was, kind of person I am now. It's like, yeah, I don't let much stop me. All right. So tonight, I am going to be taking a look at Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome, which is from Necrotic Gnome, and it is available here in the U.S. through Exalted Funeral. This tome is written by Gavin Norman. I am going to share the artwork credits as we take a peek at the book because there's a lot of them. The 248-page digest-sized hardcover is available, once again, as I mentioned, through Exalted Funeral. It includes the PDF, and you can grab that for $40. These are back in print. They've been out of print for a while. Got a new print run, and that new print run has arrived in the United States. So you can get your hands on the Player's Tome as well as the Referee's Tome for Old School Fantasy. Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy. You can grab the PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $20. Keeping in mind, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG, be sure to swing by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a little portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you like the channel, if you like what I do, if you dig thegaminggang.com, you can always purchase a cup of coffee, buy me a cup of Joe or some soda. I swear it's soda. It really is. It's never anything else. Sometimes it's tea, but it's usually soda. You can do that by going over to paypal.me/gaminggang and making a small donation. And there are a lot of people out there who utilize the banners for DriveThruRPG or to go over to paypal.me and really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. If you are not familiar with the Gaming Gang, keep in mind, one of the only outlets out there who does not do Kickstarters. I do not do a Kickstarter every year asking you to keep me around. So, Madman says, I just found a pic of the Car Wars game. Get this, in a Ziploc bag. Not very difficult. Took about a minute. Yeah, I know. I know. What can I tell you? What can I tell you? All right, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome from Necrotic Gnome. Yes. Yes. If you caught the interview yesterday, I had mentioned to Gavin Norman that these volumes were going, before the print run arrived, they were going secondary market for $80 to $100. So, and these are normally $40. So quite a big markup. So I'm very, very happy to get my hands on these. And I do want to mention the fine folks over at Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral were kind enough to provide me with this review copy of the Player's Tome. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. And these days, it's important that you know that. So a few things. I'm going to be staying picture in picture up here. So I'm going to be cutting off the upper left portion of the book as we take a peek inside. Also, we're not going to look at each and every page. Just want to give you a feel for what's in the book, discuss some of the things that I know about this, and of course, take a peek at stuff that I have not seen, because this is going to be the first time I'm going to have an opportunity to crack this book open. And I have, like I said, really been looking forward to this because I'm kind of thinking I might be running some old school adventures with my nephew and some of his friends, and maybe my niece and her boyfriend and my brother. I'm thinking I'm going to use this. I am thinking I'm going to use this. In fact, what I might do, between, us, I'm thinking actually doing Temple of Elemental Evil that I've got of the original adventures reincarnated and use Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy for it. All right, so let's take a look at the back here. The essential old school game of fantastic adventure, monsters, and magic, expanded with advanced character options and spells. This book contains the complete game rules, 13 fantastic classes, 10 classic races, full equipment lists, and over 200 weird and wonderful spells. Simple rules let imagination and fast-paced action take the spotlight. Clear, modern presentation makes the game easy to learn and quick to reference. Compatible with decades of classic adventures and supplements. Few things that I do know about this. This is not an additional add-on to the classic rules. So if you already own Old School Essentials classic rules and you really don't have any interest in utilizing some of the goodies from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you don't really need these. You really don't. You do require both tomes. You need the player's tome and the referee's tome, and that is it. That's all the info that you need. So my understanding is, unlike the old days, all your rules are located right in here. So as opposed to, say, first edition of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, where you had your rules kind of broken up all over the place in 3 volumes, that is not the case here. All right, jumping on in. Oh, you know what? Let's take a look at the artists, because we got a lot of them here. In fact, we've got our interior art. So the cover art is from Peter Mullen. And one thing I think is kind of cool. Okay, so we've got on the cover, you've got sort of this skeletal creature attacking our adventurers. And we've got some skeletons down here. So, okay, so this is the player's tome. And then on the referee's tome, which I'm going to shoot a video. I'm going to try to do a video tomorrow. We have like this evil wizard, whatever it is, some sort of evil magic using creature is actually summoning these things, which is right here on the cover. So I like that. I like how they kind of tie in a little bit. They kind of tie in together. All right, so let's see. For the artists, we have, and I'm going to mispronounce tons of names here. Ian Bagley, Mustafa Bakir, Jerry Boucher, or Boucher, maybe that is it. Paul Caprio, Michael Clark, Thomas Denmark, Julie Eileen, Chris Huth, Tom Killian, Adrian Landeros, Jethro Lentil, Mark Lyons, Chris Malik, Sam Mamel, William McAusland, Bradley McDevitt, Penny Margalero, Peter Mullen, well, I already mentioned Peter Mullen, Diego Noriega, Thomas Novessel, Juan Ochoa, Stephen Pogue, Olivia Pullitz, Spaghetti Quester. There you go. I'm sure Spaghetti Quester is a company, not an individual. Rachel Quillian, Matthew Ray, Luca Rajek, Peter Sega, Frank. Oh, I think we mentioned him yesterday. Frank Scalossi, James Shields, Johann Stahl, Del Tieger, and Andrew Walter. And one of the issues is this font is awfully small. So one of the reasons why I'm having a little hard time making that out. Okay, so we get into about this game. So one of the aspects of Old School Essentials is that everything is pretty concise and presented in as a non-verbose way possible. So you're not going to see page after page after page regarding a specific aspect of the game rules. This is not first edition Dungeons and Dragons boiled down to the same treatment that Basic and Expert got for Old School Essentials classic rules. This is BX with advanced D&D goodness ported over to it. So once again, this is not a retro clone of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It is Old School Essentials classic fantasy rules with AD&D classes, monsters, magic, so forth. Bane 122 says, I have to give a shout out to their operation. I ordered the 3 tomes yesterday and they already shipped today. Nice. Yes, Kristen over at Exalted Funerals is very, very nice. I'm trying to put together an interview with her, but because of the laptop thing, it's kind of slowed the process down. That's if you ordered it here in the U.S. I got to be honest, I don't know how the Necrotic Gnome store works outside of the U.S. So we got some terminology talking about the dice, talking about this book, our classes, our spells, How do you read a monster stat block? One aspect that I do like a lot with Old School Essentials is that you do have the opportunity to utilize Ascending Armor class. You're not locked into the same character matrices, the combat matrices that you had from Basic and Expert. And of course, if your players have experience with Pathfinder, with Dungeons and Dragons, any sort of D20 sort of role-playing games, that Ascending Armor class makes it easier for them to kind of get their feet wet and get up and running, as opposed to having them taking a peek at a matrices or matrix for their characters. Talking about other books as well, we can start getting into some artwork. I got to point out that I was kind of surprised when we took a look at the Classic Rules tome on Monday's show that there was as much artwork in it as there was, because I had heard people kind of whinging about not having a lot of art in the Classic Rules tome, and I thought there was quite enough art in it. So here we go. Here's our Ascending Armor class right here. Something else I thought was funny is, as weird as this sounds, there are a lot of people out there who don't remember how you make an ability check in the old school D&D. I was like, so what's the bonus that I add to my 20-sider? And it's like, no, that's not how you check your abilities. You actually roll a 20-sided die. Maybe you have a modifier, plus, minus, whatever. But you're rolling equal to or under your attribute. That's how you do an ability check. And I had to chuckle because in the Classic Rules tome, it's like, off the top of my head, I think it's like page 114, because I actually have started reading the rules tome so I can do a review of it. And it's all of like one column talking about it. Because once again, the old school approach to adventures was common sense. Now, I've heard people talk about that they never had a character fall off a horse until you had like proficiencies and things like that. So discussion about alignment, and the alignment looks like we still have the law, chaos, and neutrality. So we're not looking at lawful good or chaotic neutral or anything like that. Optional rule for weapon proficiency, languages, secondary skills, also an optional rule. Secondary skills are, compared to like feats and things like that, are relatively weak. You would roll, you'd have, okay, so what was kind of like your past occupation, or what was the occupation you've been trained as? And you might get a bonus if you were doing an ability check related to that career. So we're going to get into classes here. So we've got the acrobat. So each class is going to get a couple of pages. Going up to level 14. I know in the Classic Rules, there's a little section. It's not even really rules, but it's talking about going up to, I think it's level 32. And I would assume that we have probably the ability for this as well to go higher levels. So as you can see, we're looking at classes here. So we have Drow as a class. So we are looking at race as class. One thing that I already know that we'll see in the Advanced Fantasy is that you will also have the option of having race and class separate, like AD&D. So I'm kind of curious that's kind of cool artwork. I like that. I'm curious to see what are the humans going to get if we're going to have class and race separate, what kind of bonus are they going to get? Because if you think about it, human characters really do get the short end of the stick. You know, they're always like the only ones who can't see in the dark. They don't get bonuses to saves. We got the illusionist. We've got the knight. Oh, okay, that's a little different. I'm sure we got a paladin still. Wasn't expecting to see the knight, or as I know some role-playing games tend to refer to them as the cavalier. There we go. There's a paladin. So the paladin has divine magic, holy resistance, laying on hands, turning the undead. They can create a holy order. Got vows of humility, warhorse, turning table results. There's for the paladin there. Of course, we've got our level progression, saving throws, spells in each of these as well. So everything in this book, as far as I understand, is all player facing. So here we have the character races as optional rules. So we've got lifting class and level restrictions. I never had any sort of level restrictions based on what the character's race was. And I know that I get it. That's one of the ways that they're trying to give the humans a bit of an advantage because they don't have like dark vision and things like that. But I don't know. To me, it always felt like you were kind of gimping the player characters. Well, you're a halfling, so you can be as whatever level thief you want to be. That was a weird thing. It's like you're a dwarf, yeah, whatever level thief you want to be, that's fine. But you want to be a cleric, like level 4. That's it. It was like all races were like, yeah, whatever level thief you want to get to, that's fine. But anything else, no. All right, so here we've got just information about the races. If you're going to separate race and class. All right, here's the humans. Let's see what we get. So they get a +1 charisma, +1 constitution. When rolling hit points, they can roll twice and take the best result. When an initiative roll is tied, humans act first as if they won initiative. They get bonus to leadership for retainers and mercenaries. Okay. All right. So, it's not dark vision, but, Okay, so we've got our advancement. Talking about our titles for the levels, experience points, wealth, a little bit of domain play info there. Not much, though, I don't think. Aha, then we get into equipment. 10-foot pole, iron rations, grappling hook, poison. Oh, jeez. I've been poisoned. Vehicles and animals. So we have land vehicles, so carts, wagons, water vessels. One aspect of basic expert OSE that a lot of people really dig is the fact that it's very modular. And you can kind of plug in rules that you like. You can unplug rules that you don't. And the game continues on. It doesn't fall apart. There are a lot of various different rule sets out there that you take one mechanic out and the whole thing falls apart. That's not the case with basic experts. So we've got some info about structures. Here we get into magic. So we have optional rule of limits on turning the undead. So we've got our arcane magic and divine magic. Of course, it is Vancian magic. So we've got our spell books. So we're going to have spells broken down by clerics, druids, illusionists, and magic users. So in each of those classes Their spells are right here. And I know I say this all the time, but one thing that I really love about the old school is the short, concise spells. Granted, control weather, that's a bit long. That's a bit long for an old school spell. But I've said it time and time again, the game master has so much information that's bouncing around in their head trying to run a game. And nothing worse than having to sit there and be like, ah, damn it. What the hell does that spell do again? And then, oh man, I got to know exactly how you cast it and blah, 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 this and that. And of course, if it's player characters, they're supposed to know what's going on with their own spells and such. So 245 Trioxin has popped in, and they've mentioned all magic systems seem vanilla after playing Dungeon Crawl Classics. I like the Dungeon Crawl Classics magic system and spell burn and things like that. Only issue that I've got is that in order to utilize the various different spells, each spell has basically a description of what it does, and then you've got a table. Got a big long table of the possible effects. And another aspect I like about DCC's magic is that every spell's not going to be the same. It's not like, oh, magic missile. Well, that fires off X number of little magical missiles and they do X amount of damage. And that's basically it every time you cast it, depending on your level. No, you can have like first level, second level characters unleash some insanely powerful spells if they're looking, they don't mind like essentially destroying themselves in the process with the spell burn. So I do like the magic system. And once again, to me, it also has a very sword and sorcery feel to it where magic, I'm a big fan of magic being unknown. Not everybody's got access to it, that it's very dark. Perkins Dearborn's joined us mentioning they like wild magic. Yeah, that's how most people refer to it, as wild magic. And I also like in Dungeon Crawl Classics that magic corrupts. So you can always tell what a player character's magic user, what level they probably are, because all the weird mutations and stuff. But you've got all those tables you have to have sitting there at the table with you. And I've said it time and time again, at least in my opinion. Oh, hey, that was the cover of Carcass Crawler issue 1, which we took a look at yesterday. I like that artwork. It's pretty cool. Where she's casting a spell and it looks like somebody's being murdered with a dagger in the shadows there. So I don't know if she's controlling the murderer or what. So as you can see, a lot of page space is devoted to the spells. So we're into the magic user spells. So Perkins says they love OSC. They played Basic Expert back in the 80s. I did not. If you've missed some of the shows lately, I've kind of joked around that we played AD&D, and the reality is we didn't play Dungeons and Dragons for that long. I think I played D&D from about 79 to maybe 81. I know it was 81 when I picked up it came out in 1981. Call of Cthulhu, the box set. So, and we started playing that, and that was it. And then Elliot ran some Stormbringer. We had some other friends that were running stuff like Twilight 2000 and Behind Enemy Lines, Top Secret. So kind of got away from D&D freshman year of high school. So I would say probably summer after freshman year. And we kind of poo-pooed basic. Ooh, basic. We play advanced. It's like it mattered. So Perkins says sometimes they let a magic user case a spell when they've spent all their spells with random side effects, risk a spell burn, etc. I like the Black Hack, I think, has a pretty cool approach to magic. We're still relatively Vancian, where in the Black Hack, when you make your ability rolls, you have to roll under your attribute. So unlike, say, in OSE, it's equal to or less. In the Black Hack, it has to be less, which I actually kind of like because it just makes things a little more difficult for those who have, an 18 in some category. But what you do is once you cast a spell, you roll on your either intelligence or wisdom. And if you roll under, then you have not lost the spell. You can still cast it again. And then every time you do that, it's going to be with disadvantage. So it's not going to be like, oh, yes, look at the 5th edition cantrips where, oh, I can cast, acid spray doing 1d6 damage all day long. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But then again, thinking about 2nd edition Pathfinder, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, the whole concept of the player characters is very, very different than the old school, because 1st level characters in 5e are like 3rd level characters in the old school. So here we get some discussion about time, weight, and movement. And of course, you've got your resources, because essentially that's really what's going on in a dungeon delve is you're trying to manage your resources so that you don't run out. Oh, here we go. There's the ability checks. So here, geez, it's even less devoted, like less lines devoted to it in the advanced fantasy than in the classic rules. So it says the referee may use a character's ability scores to determine the character's chances of succeeding at various challenging tasks. Roll d20, and if it's less than and equal to or equal to the ability, the check succeeds. And you can modify it anywhere from -4 to +4. And of course, a natural 1 is a success, and natural 20 is a failure. And one of the things with the ability checks kind of throws some people off is that normally you're looking in combat, you're looking to roll high. But if you're making an ability check, you're looking to roll low. Trying to make a save, you're looking to roll high. So I know the ability checks have confused some people a little bit. Perkins says, asks if I've seen Ben Milton's Maze Rats. I've not looked at Maze Rats, but I know Maze Rats is all of 8 pages. So I do like the rules light approach, but I want some crunch. I don't want no crunch. But yeah, I think essentially the spells there are like a sentence. It says, hey, this is what the spell does. And in a situation like that, usually you're going to roll to see if that spell succeeds or the target of that spell is going to get a save against it. So, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that there's no spells that automatically work. It's not like, oh, you cast it, it works. So there's some risk of failure. Madman says the only time I roll high consistently is when they need to roll low. Yes, I have. I've had those experiences as well. It's like playing Twilight Struggle with my Soviet die because I always have to play the Soviets. I think I've played the United States once. So I have a US and I have a Soviet die I picked up at Gen Con. And never fail. If I need to roll a 6, I roll a 1. If I need to roll a 1, then I roll my 6. So I have damage, healing, and death. Chance of raising the dead based on their constitution. Hazards and challenges. As you can see, this is all just real, to the point, no excess fluff. And I know there are people out there, and I mentioned this in the interview with Gavin yesterday, is there are folks out there who miss the examples that were provided in the basic box set, in the expert box set. And he says they've bounced around, maybe putting together some sort of a starter book, a short starter book. Because that is one thing that I had mentioned to my nephew, because I bought him the Classic Rules Tome for Christmas as one of his Christmas gifts. And I had pointed out that he's going to want to look into how to run games, because he's kind of using my approach. But the problem is you can't really duplicate how I run a game without actually knowing the tenets of role-playing games. It's a little tough. Perkins says back in the day, they had players roll 4d6, 5d6 under their stat to achieve some result. Which one was it you rolled 3d6? Was that OD&D? I'm trying to remember if it was OD&D that you rolled 3d6, and I believe you had to roll under your attribute to succeed. So Dan Webb has joined us in chat. Says their group played first edition AD&D back in the early 80s, had plenty of 18 plus stats, so we wouldn't need 5th edition. We matured up to OSR now. So we got to talk about encounters, evasion, and pursuit. I do notice some of the artwork appears to have been recycled from the classic rulebook, which is fine. I would think I'm sure there is overlap. I'm sure there are people who had picked up the classic rules who then went on to pick up the advanced fantasy tomes. But I would think at this point in time, maybe a little less of that, simply because these are the standalone rules. This is not an expansion on Old School Essentials classic rules. So we've got morale. But it looks like this morale is more with your hirelings than anything else. Monster morale's no doubt in the referee's tome. It's got our combat tables. Oh, there we go. There we have our attack matrix. Our monster saving throws as well. Attack rolls using THAC0, or attack rolls using ascending armor class. Then we got our indexes, open game license, a little more artwork, and what would essentially be on our Game Master screen. Gear, weapons, combat stats, and so forth. Nice. That is the Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Player's Tome from Necrotic Gnome, available through Exalted Funeral here in the U.S. Once again, this 248-page digest-sized hardcover is available for $40. That includes the PDF, or you can grab the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $20. Should mention that I am going to do my best to get a first look video of the referee's tome out tomorrow or Friday. I have to go downtown Chicago again on Friday. So, I know it's going to be so cold. John Wong has joined us in chat. Welcome aboard, John. I think this might be John's first visit. Perkins says, yes, OD&D 3D6, create your PC. Yeah, I know that. It was advanced D&D that went to the roll 46. Once again, a lot of people forget that. A lot of people think, oh no, it was 3D6 and you rolled in order. And, you know, if you rolled a 7 for strength, well, then you got a 7 for strength. That wasn't AD&D. Yeah, as we took a look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, it was pretty shocking to see all the stuff that, for one, I had forgotten were in the book. But how many rules in that were in there that people were just like, whatever. I'm not using that rule. I don't use that. So the Madman says, I would be all over Old School Essentials content if they knew their players would be willing to give it a try. All depends. All depends on what your players are looking to do. I've had players, you know, that it's just Call of Cthulhu. They don't want to play anything else. It's like, yeah, then fantasy, Lord of the Rings. It's like, well, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's fantasy. So I get it. I understand. Hey, you know, at least you can get players to play. That's a bonus too. I really wish I could get a group together that was available, you know, every couple of weeks. Get together, and I tend to run long game sessions. So I am not one of these, hey, we're playing for 3 hours. I'll do 8. You saw the charity stream that we did. I did, 6, wasn't it? I think it was a 6-hour Call of Cthulhu adventure that it was pretty fun. All right. That is it for this time out. Once again, don't forget, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Also let you know when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Dungeons & Dragons Original Adventures Reincarnated Volume 2, Isle of Dread from Goodman Games. So look forward to this. It'll be up before this weekend. So, and I've got a lot of other goodies we'll be taking a peek at. Monday, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know, because it's the 31st. So conceivably, we're still going to be in the midst of the old school for the new year celebration. I just don't know what we're going to take a look at. Maybe I'll do a review. Maybe I'll share a review. And then, of course, I've got a bunch of new Pathfinder stuff, Starfinder stuff. As I mentioned yesterday, we've got the Character Chronicles. I got a couple of the Character Chronicles from Beatles and Grimms. So, is it Beetle? Oh, why did I say Beatles? It's from the Beatles. Yes, that's right. Ringo Starr put these together from the Beatles, the Beatles. Psst, hey, Beatle. Wasn't that from Help? Psst, hey, Beatle. Come here, Beatle. The spy or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where these things pop into my head from. What happens when you get old? You're like, oh my God, I just thought of this. Why? Anyway, of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com, where you'll usually find the latest tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. Of course, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you watched live, thank you very much. If you took part in chat while hanging out, you got extra experience points there. Hey, who knows? Pretty soon you might be leveling up. We'll find out. But of course, I know a lot of people out there don't have an opportunity to watch these streams live, regardless how you watch any of the videos on this channel, even if it's on Memorex. Thank you very, very kindly. Always appreciate anybody out there taking time out to check out any of the videos on the Gaming Gang channel. I will be back on Monday. Once again, I'm not positive what we're going to take a look at. Be sure to follow me on Twitter because I always reveal what's going to be on that evening's agenda, usually in the morning, sometimes the night before. But we'll take a look at some role-playing game release of some sort. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your week and the weekend. Stay warm out there. I know we're going to be pretty cold for a few more days, and then we're going to be up into the 40s, which I'm looking forward to that. So, all right. And here's hoping that each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your own gang. See you Monday. Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.